Howdy folks, welcome back to the channel. Today I will be reviewing the San Diego Comic-Con 2019 convention exclusive NECA Toys Superman Aliens 2-pack. If you haven't already, you can go check out my previous review, which was the NECA Batman vs. Predator 2-pack, because I'm going to be mentioning a lot of stuff I said in that video, but the gist of it was NECA really knows how to do DC well. Pretty much better than any company has done DC. I'm not talking, Sideshow or Hot Toys. I just meant standard retail 6-inch figures or 7-inch, whatever you want to call it. This is actually probably more in 7-inch scale than 6-inch. I'm not completely sure, but just a heads up, people, before I get into the review, I am going to be trashing NECA, even though they know how to do DC well. I have heard so many stories from a lot of different folks out in the community about QC with these 2-packs. Even though I got lucky with the Batman vs. Predator 2-pack, which was pretty much perfect, I didn't really have any issues with the joints or anything like that. But man oh man, this set has its problems, to the point where I almost broke the Superman. I just came out completely lucky with this one, but I'll get into that later. For now, let's head into the review. Alrighty, so the box really isn't anything special. Obviously you have the Superman insignia and the Aliens logo, 20th Century Fox in the bottom, DC on the other, and a warning label. Pretty much like the last box, there is nothing else on the box, nothing on the back, the sides, the top, nothing. And if you open it with the Velcro, that's where you would see the figures inside. Comes with a plain purple background and nothing on the opening flap. Again, I'm fine with this. I don't really care. I think it's classy, so no complaints here. Alright, and here is a better look at their scale. Obviously this alien is super duper tall. I don't even have him standing all the way up because of his really weak knee joints. It is such a pain to pose this guy. I really need to get a hold of some kind of stand because he just doesn't want to do it well. Even with the support from the tail, it's difficult. But the problems with her is not as big of a deal for me as with the Superman. Now, with the Superman, his joint right here, the lower elbow joint, which I'll show later, was completely frozen. I would periodically return to the figure with hot water, and I even had to use an X-Acto knife to carve away in between the joints so that it can finally move. And I actually did that for a couple days. I would periodically return and try again because I was so paranoid that I'm going to break this figure and that's it. I can't return it. Obviously it's exclusive to a convention and it's not like NECA's going to replace it. I came out lucky. The joint finally ended up moving, but I gotta tell you folks, it was nerve-wracking. It really was. I probably almost broke it. Later when I show you the joint, there are even white stress marks that look like they were ready to rip if I kept on doing what I was doing for just a little longer, but luckily that is not the case. But anyway, since I'm already rambling on about Superman, let's take a closer look at him. I am going to put the quality control complaints aside for a moment because this figure is really good. I'm going to give you guys a quick 360. It's pretty much the same mold as the Batman. Again, if you didn't check out that review, I hopefully will remember to leave a link down below, but you can just search it up on my channel. It pretty much uses the same mold, which is, I thought it was perfectly fine. It's definitely really nice. A lot of muscle definition, and again, it's really proportionate, it's detailed, and the engineering is really well done. So NECA obviously put a lot of work into the molds. I think they kind of built this mold thinking that, if we ever get a DC license, this is what we can work with, because this is the mold that, if they did get the license, would be used for a ton of figures. It's fantastic. It should work for everybody. It's kind of like what the DC Universe line was. Obviously, they used a male body mold for a ton of different figures, and it always worked. And that's definitely the case with this. That line had a problem with the thigh joints here, in that it had a gaping crotch pit in a way. If you collected them, then you kind of know what I'm talking about. But NECA fixed that problem. They used ball joints, and it looks fantastic. But anyway, let's take a closer look. So starting with the head sculpt here, it is really, really nice. What I loved about the Batman is that these figures don't necessarily look realistic, and NECA typically tries to go for that, but the paint they used, the way they sculpted how his eyebrows and are featured, and his expression, it just looks like it's drawn. And I think it's really, really cool. Obviously, the eyes are painted like a light blue, and there are no colors bleeding onto the white around them, which is nice. Overall, the head is pretty clean. I do have a little bit of spillage onto the black. You probably can't even see that on camera, but it does look pretty damn well. And he does have a tiny little butt chin right there. Again, kind of tough to see. And obviously he has a really serious expression. The cool thing about this is actually the hair. So I like the way they painted this. It's glossy and it kind of looks wet in a way. And in person, there's actually some very, very, very subtle themes of blue, like blue streaks throughout the black, which, again, it's used to make this character look like he's actually been drawn, like he's from a comic. Now, in case you don't know, this is the Superman from the Superman Aliens crossover, but I'll talk a little bit more about that. Because he didn't necessarily look like this in the first run, in the first Superman Aliens crossover. He actually resembles the Superman from Superman Aliens 2, but I'll talk more about that later in the video. But yeah, so you can tell there's a lot of muscle definition in the neck there, and I do like the skin tone they used, and look at a little bit of the back there. So a lot of muscle definition, like I said, a little bit of shading in between the muscle groups, which is fantastic. And his insignia right here is pretty good. Looks like I don't have too much bleeding on it, so that is lovely. Just a little tiny bit right there. Again, you really have to look at this under a microscope to see it. The paint in general, it is good. But when you have it in person, you have to be really careful. On camera, it looks very, very nice. It's a solid blue. It looks stable, and it's just really cool looking. The one thing about the paint, and I'm not sure why they went this way, is that it chips really, really easily. For example, you can even see a spot right there in between the abs. And the paint, it kind of looks a little bit mushy in some areas, and again, it likes to chip off here and there, so just be really, really careful with it. You might be noticing some streak marks on the elbow joints, but that actually wasn't the figure's fault. It was me trying to get it loose. It's not too bad, but I had no other choice. I had to get that joint movement, but again, you have to look at it under a microscope to even see it. But as you can tell, the sculpt is amazing. It's definitely a mold that they can keep milking for a lot of DC figures, maybe even for that Green Lantern set for NYCC. And here you got the Superman belt here, nice solid yellow. Got those red straps over it. This one has some bleeding. I can't see it too well, but it is there. Again, it kind of looks Play-Doh-y, the paint, but it's not too big of a deal. I just knocked the camera. And there's the back, which has a ton of muscle definition. It's crazy. They even have like little wrinkles right here on the elbows, which is pretty crazy. The cape, by the way, is held on right here. It hasn't come loose on me so far. I don't know what will happen in the future. I assume nothing. It's not like the cape is wired or anything. You're not going to be manipulating it too much, so these shouldn't be strained all that much. But yeah, so here's a better look at the ball joints they used, which I'm happy with. I think it definitely makes the mold a lot better, a lot more realistic. And we pretty much saw this muscle definition and all that when I was reviewing the Batman, but I do want to show it off again in case people didn't see that video. It just looks really proportionate, realistic, and comic-y at the same time. It's pretty great. And there are the hands. They even sculpted a tiny little vein in there, and a couple of wrinkles on the palm, which is pretty nice. So that's always cool. And here are the boots, which are pretty standard, not a whole lot to talk about. It's well done though. And there's the rest of them, got this ridge across the boots, and he does have peg holes at the bottom if you want. But like the Batman, he doesn't really have trouble standing. I haven't had too many issues with him. I actually had more issues with the Batman with standing, but it really wasn't that bad. It's no different than any other figure I've dealt with before. So standing, absolutely no issue. And again, he's really proportionate. That's what I like about these molds. They work so well. I'm trying to get him from a distance to show him off. It just, from any angle, it works. So, man, it's a great figure. The QC issue, right. Can't forget about QC. It's NECA. So this joint right here, like I mentioned, you can see some paint marks. And I fiddled with this for a long time. If I open it here, and again, it's really scary to do, there's the stress mark. And I don't want to do that a whole lot, and it still is kind of difficult to move it. I know a lot of different folks out in the community who've had issues with him and Batman. Mainly him though, that I've heard. And a lot of people broke off the legs, they broke off the arms just because they were frozen completely shut. And this actually wasn't the only joint that was shut. I think these were shut as well, but they were pretty easy to fix. Still pretty tight, but it's not too bad. The foot joint right here was completely shut. That took a little bit of work, and I don't remember anything else being a problem, but those were nothing in comparison to that. I struggled with that for a while. Again, it was like that for a couple days. That's why I was reluctant to do a review, because I didn't want to break it and I didn't want to show it off like this. I kind of wanted to show a complete figure, but yeah, so that's a shame, NECA, and I might sound like a douchebag because not a lot of people were able to get their hands on these, so I am really, really lucky to have these. But at the same time, I'm thinking, come on, NECA. A, you didn't make a whole lot of these, and B, you had one job. You had one job. Again, I came out lucky, but there are a ton of folks who broke these figures, and it's a damn shame because you can't return these, you can't exchange them. It is what it is. You'll have to live with it. And it's not our fault. It is NECA's, so. But, okay, again, I like to ramble a lot about QC, but besides that, it is an excellent figure, and it has some pretty cool accessories. But, anywho, let's just show off the articulation. So the articulation was something I was actually looking forward to doing for this video, just because it was kind of hard to show off with Batman, because he had so much armor on him, and because the armor liked to fall off, so it was a pain. But this is a really good figure to show off the mold. So the head can look up pretty far, and it can go down about that much. It can go left and right, can pretty much do a 360, and can wobble, so it'll work with you. I wish it went up a little bit more for some flying poses, but it's not that big of a deal. Alright, so here are the shoulders. They can go out that far. They can do the 360, though I really don't want to go do a full 360. I'm paranoid. And he does have the upper bicep cut and the elbow joints. Okay, so I'm paranoid with this one, but here's the first one. You know what, I'm not going to work with that one. I'm just going to do with these. So there you go. And the hands, they can do a full 360 and go out and in. So that's pretty cool. The ab crunch is pretty good. It is super duper tight on my figure, so I'm a little bit paranoid when doing it, but let's see what I can do. I can move it back pretty much that much, and I can move it forward that much. So he has a pretty decent ab crunch. I like it. And obviously the body can twist left and right, so that's pretty good. The ball joints, right, so it can move forward that much. The underwear here is a little bit pliable, so it won't give you too much resistance. And back that much, gives you a little bit there. And he can do the super splits. This one won't go out all the way. I don't think it's, no, I think it's just a tight joint, so I don't want to F around with that. They do have an upper thigh cut, double jointed knees, which is awesome. He does have a boot swivel. It's a little bit tight. I'm always paranoid with the feet as well, but they can back and forward, and he does have ankle pivot and the foot joint. So again, the mold is great. It's something they could really milk, and it's something that really won't get old. So yeah, this is kind of like the Bucky Cap mold of Hasbro's Marvel Legends line. It's something you can always use for pretty much any male figure. And honestly, before I get into accessories, man, I would love to see them tackle a female body, because it's probably going to be just as good. And usually when companies do female bodies, the joints are crappy and they always screw it up. So this proves that neck is number one. But fuck you, QC department. Alrighty, so size. I do have my trusty tape measure right here, and he is about 7 inches. So yeah, so I think it's a pretty good size. He definitely fits well with the Batman, who I have actually right over here. Let me kind of get him out of a fighting pose. I kind of want him just sitting straight, standing straight, I mean. No, Bat, you're gonna stay in his hand. Again, you gotta work with this one. It's a little bit more resistant, but there he is. So it works really, really well. Another thing I want to show off would be some human figures from NECA line. So I do have the Weyland-Yutani soldier from Alien 3. And I actually also brought the Ripley from Alien 3. Right here. Actually, I'll move you out of the way. Put you right here. Just kind of comparing it to some human figures. So there you go for size. Let me move these guys out of the way, and I can show you him with some Predators. First up would be the 2-pack Batman vs. Predator. Right here, obviously he towers over these guys as he should, so the scale definitely works pretty well. I'm going to move Batman out of the way and hope he doesn't fall. He shouldn't. And I'm going to bring in a pretty big mold. It is the AVP mold, which are they're the larger Predators. And it's pretty good. I mean, I have the Battle Damaged Celtic here, and man, I forget how big these are. They really show off their size when they're next to other figures. And for some comic book love, I'm going to move you out of the way, sir. And I'm going to bring in the Dark Horse Predator from Concrete Jungle, the cover, I mean, because technically this wasn't in Concrete Jungle, but there you go. And now I'm going to move you out of the way and show Superman off with a standard AVP alien. I do have the Grid alien right here with the non-battle damaged tail. So there you go. Yeah, he looks good with everything. I like to mess around with non-canon stuff, put them next to things that don't even make sense. Gotta play with your toys, folks. That is my motto. But we are forgetting one important thing. Whoops. And here he is next to my alpaca. Alrighty, so accessories. Superman comes with some pretty cool stuff, actually. I'm going to start with the head right here, which is used for the laser eyes. So let's get a good view on this one as well as I can. He's doing definitely a different expression. His teeth are showing, his eyebrows are spiked, and I think the hair is pretty much the same. Yeah, it should be the same sculpt. You'll notice that he is Cyclops. There's a giant gap in his effing eyes, in which you can put the laser accessories. But before I do that, let's actually pop this on. Now, believe it or not, this is actually the first time I'm popping this on. I spent so much time with this joint that I didn't even get to play with the figure. I just leave it for the review. But let us slowly pop it off. I'm going to be very careful. There you go. And you can tell there is, so there's a blue joint right there. And yeah, you just pop it on. Seems pretty easy. Not really too resistant, but I don't want to be too rough. Man, getting the head on was actually tough. Yikes. That was scary. Okay, let's start with the first pair of laser eyes. These are the shorter ones. Have some pretty nice detail. There you go. So just a solid red with some little sparkly bits at the end. And yeah, all you do is shove it in his face. And there he is, and that looks so flippin' cool. If you have a flight stand, you can get him in some pretty cool poses. I'm going to try and lift the camera up and do something like that. One sec. This is kind of how I actually want him to be posed, but that would be cool. So that looks pretty sweet. And you can do the same with this one, which is a really cool accessory. Alright, there he is. That looks flippin' cool. So you can see there is a blast effect right there, which is pretty detailed. I like it. And there's a closer look at the end bits there, but man, that looks so flippin' cool. I like that a lot. Again, I'm gonna have to find a flight pose or a flight stand for him, because this is pretty much how I want him to be. Unless that doesn't fit on my shelf, we'll see. Yeah, and you also do get these. Some flight hands, which have some pretty decent detail. I don't know why everything's coming out yellow on my camera right now. We're gonna lift up the camera and fix that. There we are. So there you go. There are his hands. Again, they put a lot of detail in these for, I mean, considering how small they are. A lot of wrinkles and stuff, some veins. And, like any other figure, just pop these off. They come out pretty easily. And, yeah, put them on. Alright, and there he is with the flight hands. Again, it'd be cool if the head can go up a little bit more. And by the way, these can swivel, go 360, but it doesn't, sadly. You can technically pop it off and kind of put it on top of the neck, but I think it's fine. I'm not really going to be putting him in this pose personally. I kind of like to mention those things in the reviews just because I know toy photographers watch some of my videos, so they kind of like when you can have all the options available. Same with like the wired cape thing that I mentioned in the Batman vs. Predator review, but so yeah, this is pretty damn cool looking. Okay, round one complete. I'm pretty much done with Superman. To give some quick thoughts before I move on to the Alien, it is a fantastic figure, has some pretty cool details, but they really screwed the pooch with those joints. Because again, a lot of folks broke their figures, and it's a damn shame. And it ain't their faults, because really, when you pay especially this much for a figure, considering it is convention exclusive, and I'm really, again, lucky to have this, it should work. But in a lot of cases it didn't, and it almost didn't for me. But anywho, before I get on another ramble, because I just love to do that, don't I? Let us check out the Alien. Now, before I get into the review for the Alien, I want to get some things off my chest. I think there's kind of a misconception with this set. Now, NECA promoted this as the Superman and the Xenomorph from Superman Aliens 1, which was, I think, a 1994 comic. In reality, and I revisited those comics, I think this set actually mirrors Superman Aliens 2, which I think was called God War, when Darkseid got a hold of a ship that came close to Apocalypse. He raided it and found a whole batch of eggs, and he started implanting chest bursters from facehuggers onto the parademons, and then they attacked New Genesis, and it was a really cool storyline with Orion. The point is that the Superman and Alien actually, I think, comes from that comic, which was in, I think, 1995. In the first Superman Aliens, they were definitely not drawn like this. First off, the Xenomorphs in that comic, they were pretty much a carbon copy of the Aliens from 1986, just the Aliens movie, with some slight color variations. The Superman in that comic was definitely not as buff as the one as this figure here, or the one from the second comic, the sequel. And also in that one, he was really flat-chested and he had much longer hair. Not really down to his shoulders, it was more so just, it was slicked back, but just longer. And in Superman Aliens 2 God War, this, yeah, she was technically seen. If you go back and revisit that comic, the aliens weren't actually shown that much. The majority of the characters shown were just like Big Barda and Forager and obviously Orion. It really focused on those characters, and the aliens being drawn were kind of like sidestep. But when you did see them, they did have these bent legs, which weren't in Superman Aliens 1, and they did have the purple dome. So the purple dome, it was different every panel. Sometimes it was purple, sometimes it was a light blue. For the most part, if I remember correctly, it was purple, but I just wanted to get that out of the way because, again, it was promoted as Superman Aliens 1, but personally, I think it resembles God War. So, anywho, let's check out that alien. Alrighty, so if you have collected a lot of aliens in your time, this little gal right here should pretty much be similar to a lot of your figures. She does have some different variations. The head sculpt specifically should look familiar from a lot of AVP figures. I think it even is pretty much a reuse of Grid Alien. The top half should also pretty much be the same. The spikes at the back, the hands, that should all look familiar. The tail, I think, was just pulled off of Grid and those AVP aliens, but the main difference is actually in the legs. The top half here is a reuse of AVP, but the bottom half should be newer. Now the feet do look familiar. I can't put my finger on which alien they pulled the feet from. My brain is just fried right now. I can't really think of which one it was, but it's pulled off something. So this alien was definitely kit bashed together. Not a big deal. In the comic, again, they pretty much look like this. There's only so many changes you can do. It's pretty much the paint job that makes this figure unique, because it's technically the first time we're getting a purple dome besides the Alien Club exclusive alien, which was just all purple. But, okay, let's look at that detail. Alrighty, so trying to give you guys a good look at the dome, kind of put it at an angle. Hopefully you guys can see it well, because I really want to show off the colors. It's a heck of a lot more impressive in person, but I really like the shade of purple that they used, and what I especially like is the streaks of black on either side of the dome. That's definitely comic accurate, because if you go back and revisit those issues, when the aliens are drawn, the top are always purple in the sides, or at least one of the sides are always black. And I like how they kind of did that on the figure. It's pretty cool. So again, they're kind of just telling you that, hey, you know, this was drawn this way, and we wanted to resemble that. So I'm glad they did it that way. Again, I love these figures because they look like they're drawn. The rest is really, really realistic looking, but I'll show more of the paint. But right, so the neck here is pretty much Grid Alien. You have a lot of coils in there, ridges, and all that good stuff, and you have some bits of kind of like yellow beige markings across the tubes and all that good stuff. So that's some pretty cool detail. And the same with the other side right here, looking pretty sweet. Now, if you notice, I actually do have some scratches on the dome. I'm not certain if those are supposed to be there. I'm guessing not. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I don't think those are supposed to be there. To tell you the truth, they actually look pretty damn cool. But, yeah, they came out of the box like that. Again, I'm not even sure if they're supposed to be there. If you have this figure, let me know. But if you notice on the neck and everything, those coils is a very light shade of purple with some black shading. And it actually goes onto the jaw. And these little I call them straps, but they're part of the gums. They have that slight tint of beige, which is pretty sweet. If you look at it head on, you'll notice that his mouth, yeah, it's a little bit crooked. It happens. And got some silver teeth in there as well. The inner mouth, let's see if I can pull that out. So I actually had to use some tweezers to pull this out. It was kind of restrictive, but there is the inner mouth. Pretty much all black, a little bit of silver on the teeth. I've seen better. I sound like a douchebag for saying that, but usually they're actually pretty good about painting the teeth on the inner mouth, so I get this one, they kind of slacked on that, but yeah, so there you go. And I forgot to show under the head right there. Got some wrinkles and more purple and all that good stuff. So the head is pretty unique looking, and the rest of the body, again, it should look familiar. It's just the paint that makes it unique. Again, they wanted to make it look like it was drawn, so you notice a lot of different shades of beige and purple and streaks of black, and they're kind of messy, especially that black shading that they use. They kind of wanted it to look, again, drawn, so it's definitely messy and not something that would appear as is in real life. And the muscle detail is just crazy. I love the AVP molds. They really don't ever get old, so I'm glad they used it for this one. Like the big chap style shoulder pieces right here. Got all those ribs, the coils on the stomach and everything. All that detail, it's crazy looking. Here you got the back. Hopefully the tail doesn't knock my camera. You got the spine right here, which is lovely. These spikes, and you have the octopi suction cups underneath, which are kind of creepy, and they do have a slight tint of beige on them. And they are pliable, like with any alien. There's more of the spine, those ridges on his oblique muscles. And you got the arms, which are pretty skinny, but really, really heavily detailed. Love the paintwork. They even painted the joints, which I'm happy about. There's the rest of the arm. The hands got 4 fingers. Fingernails are painted silver. There's the inside. Oh gosh, that's creepy looking. Ew. That's gross. I don't know why that creeped me out. And checking out the legs over here. More of those creepy ass coils. You got some shoulder, well, I call them shoulder pieces on the thighs, which are lovely. And just checking out all the detail. You got these alien isolation style legs, which are pretty interesting looking. Not the best for standing, I'll tell you the truth. Whenever I get an alien like this, they never stand well. But they definitely look cool and painted very well. There are the feet, again, silver nails, lots of detail. Does have peg holes at the bottom and paintwork at the bottom, which I'm happy about because I need to purchase a stand for this guy, or make a stand at least. So there you go. And the tail should also look pretty much familiar. Pretty much just torn from grid, the standard grid mold from AVP. Got lots of different color variations. It is bendable, and the spikes and everything, or the ridges, are pliable. And you got the end here, nice bit of purple and everything. I think the bendy wire ends right here. I'll show that more in the articulation phase. But yeah, so this guy, she has a lot of detail. She really does. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, just because we have seen this a lot, but she's good looking. And if you like those AVP molds like me, which I think are like the superior molds, this figure is great. My only gripe is the loose joints, because, oh dear, standing isn't fun. I don't know how she's doing it right now, to tell you the truth. I guess the tail is helping out, but usually that is not the case. It's just doing that because, of course, I needed to show it off on camera, and I decided to work for a change. But anywho, she does not come with any accessories at all, so I guess let's just head into articulation. You know, from this angle, this actually kind of looks brown now. That's weird. Anywho, if you have collected the AVP molds in the past, should all be familiar. You do have a hinge and a ball joint here at the base of the neck, so it's a little bit tight, and I don't, because you can see there is the, oh man, yeah, it doesn't want to work fully with me. I have gotten it to move forward and back besides the ball joint. It's just really, really tight on mine, and honestly, I really don't want to break this figure. So I'm just going to show off the ball joint, left to right, up and down, can wobble, do everything you need to do. Mouth can open, inner mouth can pop out, and that's that. Again, that hinge over there, it does work, but it needs more hot water. So if you get that to work, it can look pretty high up. There you go. The arms can go the full 360, out and in. He does, or she does, actually have a double jointed elbow, which is wonderful, and it can swivel all the way around, which is great. I think there's actually a swivel at the base of this joint as well. Let's see. Yes, there is a little bit of a wobble there. What do you know? The hands can move the full 360, go out and in with a hinge, and the fingers can move. The ab crunch is good, but it is tight on mine, so yeah, again, I don't want to mess around with it too much, but if you put it under hot water, more hot water, give it more treatment, it'll work. Again, NECA, it'd be nice if your figures can just work as we see them in the photos to be working, but of course that's not the case. The legs has a thigh cut or a thigh swivel, can go for, it can actually do a full 360, but I don't want to, and it can do the splits, but it's hindered by those pads right there. So there you go. Double jointed knee right there, and it can do a full 360 there, and there is also a joint right here, a hinge joint, and it can swivel left and right, and a ball joint at the feet, which I think was a poor choice. It doesn't get a lot of mobility, I'll be honest with you, and she does have the foot joint, but yeah, not a lot of mobility there. So standing her up is not easy simply because of those feet. They just don't want to work too well with me, and the joints at the knees are incredibly very loose, so it just doesn't work. And the bendy wire tail, which, you know, works well, I'd say. It's all good. So it's really, really tight on mine. I don't know why it's not focusing. That's really effing annoying, but yeah, it's really tight joints. But yeah, see, I shouldn't have messed with the tail, man. Now she has to sit. Literally, she can't hold her own weight with those knees. She has to sit. So I have to go fiddle around with the tail now because it's just not gonna work with me. But I want to get her standing up so I can show you how tall she is. To tell you the truth, this is probably the best that I can do at the moment. It just does not want to work with me. As she is right now, she is approximately, she would be way over 10 inches if it wasn't for those crappy knees and everything. Here she is next to Celtic, which is a pretty big predator, and here she is next to a grid alien. Obviously she's a lot bigger because of those extra leg joints, but you can see they're definitely quite similar besides those you know, the legs and everything. Oh, so Grid had those feet. See, I told you my brain is cooked. So it's a good mold. Just I wish the you know, the joints would work. That'd be great. Next to Superman fell. Here she is next to Superman. Move it or lose it. And Batman. I'm gonna move Grid out of the way. Can put the Predator. And then move you out of the way. And here she is next to Dark Horse Predator. So got a whole bunch of comic figures right here. She's pretty good. Again, the legs, they look cool. Doesn't work too well. Usually aliens with those legs, in my experience, don't work well. the Xenomorph from Covenant, the Aliens Defiance alien, just doesn't work too well, but it's fixable, technically, but I'm lazy as shit, so let's move on. Okay, final thoughts on the NECA Superman Aliens 2-pack from the lovely SDCC 2019 convention, which I attended for preview night. It's a cool set. The Superman is excellent. The alien is pretty good. QC aside, they would have been fine, but of course, you know, Randy, I'm looking at you, pal. Really, guys, you had one job to produce a small amount of figures for a certain amount of people, and you decided to freeze half the joints, literally half the joints I had to free, and of course the alien can't stand without a lot of support. Even with the tail, she's slouching, so that's fantastic. But I'm a pessimist, so maybe all of this wouldn't be a big deal to you. Maybe I'm just uptight, I don't know. So many people have broken that Superman, broken that Batman. Even folks in the Sanctuary told me, hey, you know, Superman's arms, legs broke. I had people message me saying, be careful, man, those are joints, they're rough. So I came out lucky. But again, it's a cool set. I like the comic. It's meant to be from Superman Aliens 2 God War. If you're a DC collector, you would absolutely love this set. I had people talking about these figures saying, oh, I'm really only getting it for the Superman and the Batman. That's actually the majority of people, and I don't blame you, because NECA, DC, that's a good fit. Too bad McFarlane got the license, because NECA would do a fantastic job. But personally, I actually got these for the Alien and Predator. I obviously love the Batman. It is super unique, definitely a big part of comic history, and the Superman is fantastic. I'm not as much as a DC collector these days, but I'm really lucky to have them. Again, QC aside, they're fun, and they look fantastic on the shelf. I'm a big fan of all the Alien Predator comics, and these are a big part of comic history. As I've said, the same with Batman. So if you can get your hands on these, pick them up. They're cool. Go check out the Sanctuary on Facebook and YouTube as well. Go check out Trophy Room on Facebook. Lovely Alien Predator community that I created. We love the franchises, comics, toys, movies, whatever. Post about it. I don't care what you post. Just don't be a douche monkey. And as always, folks, have a good morning, evening, midday, whatever, and take care.